Welcome to Project Vanguard podcast. This week we have a special episode where I actually got interviewed by Ben Wilson with Energy Right on the American First Energy podcast. We go into a little bit about my backstory, working and starting Project Vanguard, the work that we've been doing, and really just how overall we're positioning Project Vanguard to leverage military voices in this industry to just talk to more conservative stakeholders in the energy industry and in these local communities. Give it a listen. I hope you like it. Make sure to follow Ben and the great work that they're doing over there with Energy Right. Enjoy. You know, if we don't have energy, and I can tell you from my time in Iraq, like my idea of energy abundance, energy security come from watching what energy poverty looks like. What does energy insecurity look like? Right? And I don't want that to happen here.
When we think about the workers driving America's energy future, we often picture engineers, technicians, or entrepreneurs. But there's another group of people quietly leading the way: our nation's veterans. According to the Solar Energy Industries Association, veterans make up nearly 10% of the entire solar workforce. That's well above the national average across all other industries. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Veterans are mission driven. Veterans excel working in complex, high stakes environments. They're trained to solve problems, adapt, and get the job done. Traits that translate directly into the kind of work that's building America's energy independence. Across the country, thousands of men and women who once wore the uniform are now wearing hard hats and safety vests, installing panels, managing logistics, and helping communities make practical, locally rooted decisions about their energy future. It's a form of continued service here at home, strengthening our economy, securing our energy supply, and building opportunity in the process. Our guest today, Kevin Doffing, embodies that story. Kevin is a veteran himself and now serves as the CEO of Project Vanguard, an organization that helps connect veterans to meaningful careers in energy while supporting communities as they consider new energy projects. From military service to leadership in the energy sector reflects the same values that define both veterans and the energy professionals shaping the next generation of American infrastructure: discipline, teamwork, and purpose. This conversation is about more than jobs or industry trends. It's about what service can look like after the uniform comes off, about how veterans continue to lead by example in building things that last, things that strengthen our communities, and things that move our country forward. As we mark Veterans Day this year, it's a good time to step back and remember that America's energy future isn't being built in Washington boardrooms or by abstract policy. Rather, it is being built by people in community, people who believe in service, in responsibility, and in leaving something better than they found it. Kevin Doffing and Project Vanguard are helping make that possible. Up next, my conversation with Kevin. Well, welcome back to the America First Energy Podcast. Excited to bring a new guest onto our show, Kevin Doffing with Project Vanguard. He's a CEO and founder, and this is part of our effort to recognize a news story that a lot of, I know, our audience may not be familiar with, but also kind of timely with Veterans Day as well. Kevin, I appreciate you joining me. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your time in the service and what brought you to the energy sector.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I got into the military because of 9/11. So that happened my sophomore year of college. I had planned on going in and doing something to serve our country, thought it would be the FBI. Turns out they require good grades. But if you get the lowest score on the mental test for the Army, you can be a cook or you can be the infantry. So I went in the infantry and deployed to Iraq, served there, came back, owned an oil and gas company after I got out, a little supply shop that I'd grown up working with my dad in. So I took that over from him, and eventually I learned about renewable energy, was really excited about it, and decided to, make that jump, got involved in some different groups, and eventually just got to know so many people. People thought I was a sales guy. And so I became a chief commercial officer for a utility scale O&M company, fixing stuff, and just started running vet stuff for the industry with SIA, with ACP, and eventually realized I think I know more veterans in the energy industry than anyone else alive, and I should do something with that. And that's kind of how we started Project Vanguard.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Project Vanguard. Obviously, you said you kind of worked in a very, varying different places in the energy industry, connecting with, for our audience's context, the Solar Energy Industries Association, American Clean Power. But tell me a little bit about Project Vanguard, and then more broadly, kind of in creating the organization, what need or gap did you see that Project Vanguard now fills?
So when I look at, like the renewable energy industry, it's the fastest to deploy. It's the cheapest. There's no marginal fuel cost. It creates a lot of energy independence. That's supporting energy security. In my mind, energy security is national security. So it has all these like game winning functions. I love oil and gas. Don't get me wrong. I live in Houston. I've been saying all of the above when it was not cool to say all the above.
Right.
Like all my friends in renewables are like, you're not going all in on net zero. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then all my friends in oil and gas are like, you're a hippie. And I'm like, no, I'm not. But, still want to be friends with both of you. So the gap I feel like we fill is we take the politics out of it and we bring the operational pragmatism that the military, inculcates all of us with. And you'll see a lot of vets inside the operations segment of really any industry, but especially in power. So, I just saw us able to bring in there's a huge component of veterans in the energy industry across all technologies, oil and gas, renewables, nuclear. It's probably highest in nuclear and the utilities because of the Navy, nuclear fleet. Not probably,
Right.
it is. But I mean, like, we just need more pragmatism because while the industry's done such a great job on the ground to run great projects, it has lost the messaging war. And I know from my time in Iraq, like winning hearts and minds stops me from having to drop bullets and, bombs. So
Right.
it matters. It's fuzzy. I don't like that part of it, but it does matter.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you mentioned it, the pragmatism, recognizing that both renewables, natural gas, oil, we need more energy. I mean, that's a big issue, of course, where energy rights working in Virginia, where we import almost 40% of our energy, and renewables are, like you said, deployable and kind of the solution that's in front of us that we can grasp. And you said it, see the Energy Industries Association Solar Group, their data suggests that around 10%, almost 10% of the solar workforce is veterans as well. And correct
Mhm.
me if I'm wrong, but Project Vanguard serves that role of connecting veterans more broadly in the industry to one another, creating those networks, but also creating opportunities for pathways into the energy industry, resources, support to those veterans who may want to make that transition. Talk to me a little bit about what that day-to-day work of making those connections and helping those veterans shift into the energy industry looks like. And then more broadly as well, how do you turn that into support for projects in communities across the country?
Yeah, so it's really a platform business model, right? So on one side, we have veterans and we help veterans get jobs. I don't tell people we help them get jobs. We help them get screening calls. So we aggregate all the different veterans that are in the industry, right? That 10%, we're nowhere near hitting that market capacity, but we have the largest market share and concentration of that. And so we all go and talk with veteran employee resource groups at different energy companies. We just hosted an event last night in North Carolina at Cypress Creek Renewables. We just hosted an event Monday night in San Angelo, Texas. We have one tomorrow in Sweetwater, Texas. We just had some events in Illinois in Ottawa County, county seat there. So, we're doing all this stuff to kind of lift up and build these activities. So, we're doing rural, local events. We're doing company, stuff in the States, but then we do a lot of bolt-on activities. So at the ACP Recharge conference in Austin last week, we had an event there. You know, just creating opportunities for veterans that are in the industry to come together and network and kind of scratch that nostalgia itch, to have that camaraderie, to have that connectivity. We have a private Slack community with almost 400 veterans that work in the industry, and they're sharing jobs, helping folks that if they get laid off or they just want a different job, different domain inside the industry, they can find that. So I don't sell people that we help people get jobs. We help them get screening calls. So what happens
Yeah.
is, hey, I want to apply for a job at Nextera. Great. We can introduce you to 4 or 5 vets that work there. Go have a call with them. And if you're not an asshole, they will tap HR on the shoulder and your resume will get to the top of the stack, so you at least get a screening call. From there, it's up to you. And I always tell vets,
Right.
the bar goes up, not down. This isn't about charity. This is about bringing high quality talent. So finding fit, finding whatever. But the AI slop is real right now, and trying to cut through that noise to get an interview. You've got to network. You've got to do that. And we've
Right.
built a network of veterans that can help you get that initial call.
Yeah. And, obviously we mentioned it. I mean, obviously it's super important. Like you say, I mean, the job market is one that's tough. Obviously the AI, like you say, slot that just kind of permeates all of these things, supporting one another, supporting veterans to get to that next step is extremely important. But, I'm kind of interested in your perspective on maybe why there is increased interest by the veteran
Hmm.
community in the energy industry broadly, but obviously in renewables, but also just more broadly, nuclear, oil and gas. How do you understand that? What's your perspective on that? Why are veterans kind of so interested overwhelmingly in the energy industry?
I mean, the energy industry is a very pragmatic, operational focused, safety dominated industry, right? It's a conservative market of we're not trying to like run fast and break things. It's not tech because if you break things, people go without power, people die. Like this is a
Right.
very serious thing. Like I know what it's like to move fast and break things, but in my mind that's like kicking in a door so you don't get shot in the street so you can when you're raiding a house. Like it's not
Right.
let's just jack with something that's working so we can just tweak it to get more users to sign up or something like that. So veterans play a lot of really great roles in the industry. They usually come in on the craft trade side, the field side, inside of project management roles, which are typically engineering, operational or logistic focused, and safety. And then project development, where you have higher level vets that are getting like their MBAs and want to get out there and do different finance or just it's kind of where the rubber meets the road for the industry on developing these projects. So those are kind of the big ones that people kind of come in on. And the nuclear fleet really drove a lot of veteran permeation inside of utilities. And so utilities will usually be like 20% veteran representation. And you can tell just because you look at like the utilities, look at NextEra, they have a fleet of 5 full-time veteran recruiters.
Right.
Like that's all they do is focus on hiring veterans. So it's not oh, we feel good and we feel bad for veterans. It's these guys and gals are making our business better. We need more of that talent funnel. And there's
Right.
200,000 veterans leaving the service every year. And the military doesn't know how to effectively transition them out successfully. And it's critical that we get vets jobs within the first 90 days of their transition out. For higher level jobs, that starts sooner through networking if you're going to make those successful career transitions.
Yeah, that's true. And I think obviously here in Virginia, we've got a humongous portion of veterans, especially on the East Coast
Mhm.
down near the shipyards. And so it's really important, I think, both at the state and local level, especially on the eastern side of the state, to figure out new ways to connect veterans that may be leaving the service, like you say, in large numbers every year to those new employment opportunities. But even more importantly, like you said, the skills that are gained in the military transfer into the energy industry, O&M, management, et cetera. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the culture. Obviously your time in the military, the culture, the perspective you got on the culture of the military. How does that kind of align with the energy industry? And are there any when you're talking to veterans? What do you hear from them about their experience in the energy industry and how it relates to that culture, whether it be the mission oriented or pragmatic kind of mindset that comes from the military? What are you hearing about those relationships between culture of military and then the culture of the energy industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's another opportunity to serve, right? So when you look at GDP, energy is 5% of it, but it's the first 5%, right? Like I'm not the one that originated that quote, but if we don't have energy, and I can tell you from my
Right.
time in Iraq, like my idea of energy abundance, energy security come from watching what energy poverty looks like. What does energy insecurity look like? Right. And I don't want that to happen here. I
Yeah.
was handing out diesel gas to just help people power, small generators so they could keep their refrigerators going parts of the day, so they could have baby formula that was cold, right? Like, I don't want that for my kids or yours. I don't
Right.
want that for my neighbors. I want us to find a way to be energy secure that we're exporting energy. I know in Indiana, one of their things is, how could we ever be an energy exporter, right? Just so we're not consuming from the other states and you're not going to build
Yeah.
enough power plants in the state, but you can build a lot of renewables. But the thing is,
Right.
renewables are just a power plant. Like I know this is the biggest mistake that the industry made was tying themselves to like democratic politics and environmental NGOs. Both great groups if that's your thing. But
Right.
that's not all Americans and it's not all things. And Those two groups are not aligned on permanent reform for the industry. And the industry is not done right by not lifting up more conservative voices, perspectives, property rights issues, things like that, that are not straight down the fairway topics for those groups. And we need our own voices. And that's why we're made up of people that work in the industry. So it's not me telling veterans what should happen to an industry that I'm not a part of. It's working with the trade groups, working with the companies that are in there. It's working with the workers that are in there. So we all know what it's really like. And
Right.
so I think that's critical to success. So like Virginia, we're starting a Virginia chapter. We have 10 state chapters right now. We're starting a Virginia chapter. Jim and Lords and a few other people that are running, and Ricky, that are running our Virginia chapter, because we want to be baked in. We want to be a voice when the next state legislative session happens and they're talking about things. We don't want people outside the industry saying, this is what y'all should do, whether it's from the right or the left. We want people from inside the industry saying, this is what it is right now and this is what we need.
Right. No, I think, and you make a lot of important points. And I think one thing to take away, I hope our audience, does some more research too. But the reality is, the states that are leading in renewable energy, particularly those red states that have supported the growth of cost-effective battery storage and generation, whether it be wind or solar, like Texas, is one that we look to all the time to point and say, this is how we can, support our grid, how we can keep costs low, help to potentially reduce costs over time. In 2023, I don't know the stat perfectly, but in 2023, there were 12 or 13 load shedding events or blackouts in the state of Texas, maybe more than that, in the summer.
It felt like it.
Right, right. And then you go into 2024, everybody, project, they understand we need to find a solution. And what is part of that solution is bringing on 4 gigawatts or more battery storage along with other renewable generation. It adds to that grid reliability. And it ensured that no more than 2 of those kind of load shedding events happened in Texas in 2024. And that's a stat that I think a lot of people should listen into. Here in Virginia, this past year, there were numerous PJM load shedding warnings. We were close. There were numerous natural gas facilities that were down for maintenance, nuclear facilities potentially down for maintenance, and we just almost didn't have enough energy generation. And like I said at the top, we import most of our energy, and until we can get more of that energy produced in the state, if we can, but in the country more broadly, we're going to be reliant on, foreign entities, et cetera. And that goes back to your point about the importance of new energy, renewable energy, to that energy security and energy independence. But like you say, we need to broaden that tent, get more conservatives on board to recognize that at the end of the day, these are just power plants. We need energy. It represents kind of the start of our day.
I'm excited about it, but I'm an energy nerd.
Right.
I don't need. I've been in meetings with, one of the state senators in Texas. We took a bunch of vets up there to talk, and we're talking about it. The first thing I walk in, and the guy's like, "You will not say wind or solar the rest of the time you're in this office." I'm like, "Hi, I'm Kevin." But we're sitting there, we're just BSing about oil and gas stuff, and by the end of it, he's like, "You know what this sounds like?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, it sounds like the shale boom in '08, doesn't it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "That's it, man. You could be a technician if you're willing to travel and just do the right thing and, pass a drug test. You can be making 6 figures in under 2 years and doing
Right.
really great things for your family." It's the same. You're going to work hard, but it's the same thing in the oil patch, that's just how it is, but you can make a really good living and do great things. And a lot of the folks that we're getting in, these travel roles and things like that are former oil and gas. They used to work on a drilling room floor. Those folks
Right.
make great electrical technicians for battery storage. And I'll tell you, I was on one of my last gigs when I was still working in sales. We put on a 75 megawatt battery installation at a peaker plant in
Yeah.
the fence line. And I was like, so what's going on here, man? I'm just curious. Now that I've won the contract, like tell me what's up. He's like, we did a report. 95% of the year we run this thing for less than an hour. So we're just going to use the batteries, and we can use the batteries out times that we wouldn't be using the peaker. You know how much fuel costs we're going to save? You have any idea how much extra money we're going to make? I'm like, and that's what I love about it. It's
Right.
just money, man.
Yeah. It's cost savings, and that goes directly to consumers over time. And we need more of that cost savings in this moment. Kevin, really enjoying the conversation. We're going to take a break here. We'll be back in just a moment to wrap up our conversation with Kevin Dopping. Thanks. Well, welcome back to the America First Energy Podcast and my conversation with Kevin Doffing, the CEO of Project Vanguard. Kevin, really enjoyed the first half of our conversation. I want to jump into a little bit more of the nitty gritty of the work that Project Vanguard is doing in community. And want to hear if you've got a story about how your organization and the story of veterans in the energy space has helped to maybe open or broaden the perspective of a community and maybe potentially grow support for an energy project. Talk to me a little bit about Project Vanguard's work in that space.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, we bring veterans into and get them on our platform, help them get jobs. That's really fills one side of what we do. The other side is a lot of advocacy work, right? And we're speaking up for our industry. So it's very organic. It's not a hard sell to get people to speak up for the thing that's paying their mortgage. And, we'll do some state lobby days to try and bring more of a pragmatic message, or we'll do some federal stuff. I prefer the state and county level stuff. The local stuff is where we do project siting support, and we'll go into communities and we'll just try to bring a pragmatic message. So we use veterans from our membership that are regional to the area. Like, I'm not going to be the best person in Indiana. I'm from Texas, right? Like, we
Right.
need somebody regionally from there. So a recent project that we had earlier this year, we were in there, our guys making friends at the American Legion, the VFW post, the Vet Center, just building up and establishing rapport in the community. And the guy Chuck used to do a ton of stuff with the Yellow Ribbon. So he's used to helping veterans get access to benefits and resources. And like he would say, he doesn't leave town until he's helped a veteran. He'll go to the
Yeah.
grocery store and find a vet with one of the ball caps signifying it, and then make sure that they have all their benefits lined up.
Right.
Like, just a great servant leader. And so we're doing some work at the vet center. We're helping them get plugged in. And one of the county commissioners comes up and is like, "Hey, what are you doing? I hear good things. You keep coming around." And it turns out that this county commissioner was sitting on, something under review with a project developer in the region, what wouldn't take a meeting with a project developer. And, we're in there leading from the industry with vets. And she's like, "Okay, I will meet with y'all only because this person is here putting boots on the ground and actually helping my neighbors that I care
Right.
about." And so, I mean, it's just stuff like that. And our industry has to be better about that. Sometimes we do that work in the lead up to build up of a project, but we got to stay. Like right now, I'm in Sweetwater, Texas, because there's so much wind out here. There's so much great things, and we're just running family events. We're just bringing
Right.
together energy workers, veterans, landowners. There's so much opportunity with what we already have. We don't have to go like, I hear these things from the industry like, "Oh, we need our own Joe Rogan. We need to manufacture something." I'm like, "You don't have to manufacture anything. You just need to
Yeah.
invest in the people you already have." And
Right.
so in San Angelo, our community leader there, Brad Quigley, runs solar sheep grazing, right?
Yeah.
26-year Army veteran, command sergeant major. And this guy just loves ag. He loves ag. And the only way he can start getting it, he doesn't own land. He
Right.
wasn't born into it. He didn't marry into it. So being able to run sheep on these properties gets him into running herds,
Right.
huge herds. And it's a great thing that even his son's like, "Oh, I can get into this." Meanwhile, nationally, farmer revenue's down 25% year over year the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting eviscerated, and this is making money, and this is dual land use. This is a great way to like get into these things. And I think that veterans just have a real pragmatic, get after it mentality that is different. And you don't just let the sheep go. It's a lot more
Right.
complicated than that, right?
Right.
Like, where's the water? How's the fencing? What are you going to do about predators? How are you, rotational programs? But, you're now feeding the local industry, fixing the trailers, welding on them, buying your water, buying your minerals, hiring shepherds, all the things that go into it. And so we want to mobilize veterans to engage in this stuff, but we're also great messengers. In the same project community in Indiana where Chuck was at, he's having a beer with a guy at the American Legion, and it's the first time the guy goes, "Huh, so water running off of solar panels doesn't cause cancer." It's like, "No, man, it's just glass."
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it comes down to the stories exist. They're there. there's just not anybody in many cases telling those stories. And I think the role that you all fill, and on our side too in Virginia, what we hope to try to fill is giving some steam, some amplification to those stories that are already out there. I mean, we, like you were saying with the grazing, we work with a number of 4 or 5 grazers here in Virginia that have been able to grow their flock from the tens of ewes to hundreds and potentially
Hmm.
thousands of ewes grazing thousands of acres. This the statement about these actually make money. I mean, these folks are getting to take their livestock and get paid for feeding their
Right.
livestock, right? I mean, that is a complete 180 of the general situation. I grew up great family friends with a gentleman who ran a sheep operation in South Alabama, and his flock has shrunk over time because it becomes more expensive to buy that feed, to have that land pay those taxes. And what this does is it provides that opportunity for the dual use for the farmer, the young farmer, the new farmer, to get into the space and take advantage of the land, be as productive as we can be with our land, while also, like you say, generating that important electron. And it's all about making those stories heard, connecting those commissioners, connecting those supervisors here in Virginia to those stories, so they see that this isn't just the industry saying, these projects are good. These are communities, these are laborers, they're farmers,
Hmm.
landowners that are saying these projects, improving these projects are good and beneficial for communities. And when advocating for clean energy projects, of course, there are many hurdles at the local level. When, in Virginia, we're pursuing permitting here at the local level. But one of those obstacles, of course, is misinformation that permeates these discussions. We
Yeah.
always ask those advocates that we talk to, we like to just chat a little bit about the things that you're hearing in the field. What's one piece of that misinformation or disinformation that you hear all the time? And then kind of how more broadly do you approach those conversations? You mentioned it a little bit there, but when misinformation becomes an obstacle, how do you approach that conversation, or how does Project Vanguard approach that conversation?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, the mistake the industry's made is like they respond with fact sheets, right? Like they're just cold hard facts. And it's like you're not selling well, you're not establishing rapport and trust. And so, I mean, for veterans, there's two real important reasons that veterans matter to the industry. One is the workforce thing, and the other is messaging. On the workforce, we have a huge talent funnel coming out of the military every year that we can repurpose and drive it in. That's a huge quantity benefit. And then veterans go through some fairly significant leadership development training. So you get a high
Right.
quality labor force too. On the messaging side, we're the only people who can really sell the whole national security benefits of, clean energy. And then on the messenger side, we're just more trusted. There's a ton of research. We're one of the last trusted institutions in America. The politics are usually right of center, if you average it out. We have people on the left, we have people on the right, but it's usually more pragmatic, libertarian, right of center. And so that's just a really great group to be able to go in, especially in rural communities where these projects are being built, and be able to effectively land the plane on a message of what are the real benefits for this. And I'm not saying this because this is for me. This is because it's good for the industry, it's good for America, and it's good for you. So, we're able to
Right.
go in there and no BS tell those stories. So I think that that's one of the reasons we keep getting appeals to like, hey, can you have somebody talk here? Hey, who do you know there? That's why we're growing so fast. That resonates with people. And also like we have a few rules of the road, not a lot. We don't talk about climate. Like if you believe it, great.
Right.
If you don't, whatever. I really don't care. I care what you do.
Yeah.
I have a psychology background, not a psychiatry background. So I'm not interested in knowing that you don't like your dad and that's why you smoke. I want you to put down the cigarette. Like that's all I
Right.
care about. So like I'm interested in what you do, not what you say. And so it's just, affecting change and just getting in there and being a good local trusted partner.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. And obviously, it's that pragmatic approach that we need to. You mentioned, I mean, these communities where these projects are being cited are matching those same, thought patterns. They're pragmatic. They want to just see, the government step back and let good development happen. But in many cases, there's that misinformation that permeates the discussion, and it just takes bringing somebody else who has that pragmatic mindset, that rational mindset to come in and tell a story of progress and, like you said, national security, energy security, and why these projects are important for communities and for the industry and for consumers who use energy. But looking kind of 5 years, 10 years down the road, kind of as the leader of Project Vanguard, what do you hope the legacy of your organization is, and how do you hope to maybe reach and pursue that, continue to pursue that legacy?
Yeah, no, I want to double the number of veterans that are in the industry. So I want us to be just like utilities. I want the entire energy industry to have 20% representation of veterans. There's no reason we can't hit that mark. It's just such a strong employment sector. A lot of people are like, well, why are you doing, I come from oil and gas, but I do a lot inside the renewable sector of the energy industry. Well, that's because it's the fastest growing segment. It's the
Right.
highest developing yield on technology. Like the efficiency and cost gains on this stuff is just unprecedented, right? When solar power is 90% cheaper than it was 10 years ago, which is 90% cheaper than it was 10 years before that. I mean, like these efficiencies can just continue to grow. And solar is really the basis of all of our power on Earth. Wind comes from heat differentials in the air. Oil and gas is, just all this stuff that's been compressed over time, but it's old plants and all this stuff. So I mean, like
Right.
the sun's the greatest opportunity that we have. And I just think that like over time, that's just going to continue to prove out. So I want to see more and more veterans in this. I want to see more and more veterans continuing to lead in this. And I think that we can just be the most effective voice for the next, especially the next 10 years as we get energy back to being boring, where 60 to 80% is like, yes, on energy. And then they go argue about other
Right.
things. Like, I just want to build the baseline of modern civilization, which is our energy infrastructure. And,
Right. Yeah. No, it makes sense.
let
And
everybody else argue
what?
about
Well,
what
I
to do
guess
with it.
right. Exactly. I mean, I guess make energy boring again. That's what we need to start putting on T-shirts and hats and everything. But let's we'll finish with two questions here. Really specifically for any audience members who may be veterans and considering a career in energy, what's the advice that you give that person as they may be looking to find a position or a job in this space?
Yeah, so we've taken a lot of that and we have it on our podcast. So you can join Project Vanguard by going to projectvanguard.com. Our podcast is media.projectvanguard.com. And so we just tell stories from veterans that have been in the industry for a while or just entered, and what was that like recently for them, and just kind of give you that long story of like being able to find yourself inside of those folks. But we do have a YouTube channel for Project Vanguard, and we do a lot of explainer videos on what these different energy segments are, how to do a lot of executive networking to get into that. Because, your questions, one I would get 3 to 5 times a week, and my calendar was just getting full of like quick conversations with people, and I'm saying the same thing over and over again. And so,
Right.
as we build this base and we help people get in faster, we want to create awareness campaigning to explain what this is to more and more people. The recruiters at the utilities I've talked to, they're like, 80% of my job is just explaining what energy is. Not, are they a good fit? Are they a good culture fit? Is the timing right? What geography do they want to be in? When do they want to start? We're just like, this is an electron. And electrons are made this way. Like most people just
Right.
don't know anything about the energy sector and what a great opportunity it is to get into it. So we're trying
Yeah.
to like, just make that so you can find it asynchronous whenever and wherever you want. You can just hear other veterans talk about what it's like to be in here, and you're just going to figure out your own pathway in, but leverage us at every turn. It's a great peer-to-peer network.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and really appreciate all the work that you're doing to connect, obviously, this important demographic to the energy industry. One final question: we like to wrap most of our interviews with this question. It's kind of a fun one, but if you could have dinner with any historical figure or just kind of significant figure, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Mm. I guess like the popular answer would be like a Mark Twain, like love satirists, and he's the best. But probably really my answer would be my grandfather. Died when I was younger. My dad has just looked up to him forever, and it would just be fun to have coffee with him and be like, okay, so what's up? What
Right.
were you like at this
Yeah.
age?
Yeah. No, very true. I feel the same way about my grandfather. Yeah, that's a great one. We haven't had that one on the show yet, so I'm glad you brought your grandfather up there. And again, Kevin, really appreciate the conversation. For all our audience, please check out Project Vanguard, especially if you're a veteran looking to break into the energy industry. Kevin, really just also want to say thank you for your service as we celebrate Veterans Day, but really appreciate it again and appreciate your willingness to be on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning into the Project Vanguard podcast. This episode sparked something for you. Share it with someone who's ready to think differently, whether it's about an all-the-above energy approach, how energy security is national security, or the veteran workforce in our industry. If you believe what we're building, a quick review goes a long way. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep up the fire.